Hello friends, welcome to episode 218 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
I'm Rob.
How you doing, Rob?
You know, I'm not too bad. It's a little warm today. I will say that.
Oh my god.
It's been, weather's been all over the place, but, it was nice for, yesterday, and, our air quality has been crap, but, I did some work on Friday and was wiped in, 2 hours.
Yeah.
I was outside for 2 hours and I was done.
Yeah. I had to mow the lawn today, too.
And then it rained all weekend, and...
It's 92 and super humid. For our European friends, that is 33.
Yeah. and 80% humidity or 85?
Something like that.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah, and so it just feels like you're walking out into the aftermath of a shower with, a cooking light on you.
Yep.
the whole time. And it's been, pretty clear all day, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just baking in the rest of the house, which, God love good insulation, but still, it's a fight.
Yep.
My girls love sitting in the window, though, and soaking up every inch of that.
Oh, I bet. It's like a sauna day for them all day.
Oh, yeah.
We had Sean's Nova Praxis Savage Worlds game
that was
last
wonderful.
weekend.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. It started getting a little crunchy, I think.
But I mean, we're literally stepping through the rule set.
Yes, that's the big thing.
So we need to do all of the things to figure out what works and what doesn't.
We need to do all of the math at least once so that we know where it sits. You know?
So I felt that was good. We kind of soft-shoed last game session into that, and this was the hard roll into numbers to see where the crunch hit sat.
Yeah, we leaned on it real good.
Yeah.
And I think it held up remarkably.
Mm-hmm. Didn't change the story.
Man, I think I really think the twist he threw in at the end of the game was just top notch.
It was fantastic,
and I told him so on the way home.
That was great delivery.
So the bad guy is a terrorist zealot who was trying to steal a piece of military hardware to do essentially what he's trying to do the Tyler Durden thing in Fight Club, where he's trying to destroy the Reputation network server, basically. So because it's a post-scarcity society, there's no money, but we have reputation. Right. And so he's just grabbed this piece of military hardware. He was going to basically destroy that. We stopped him from doing that because we got the piece of military hardware from him. And so he ended up just waiting for us to call the cops, and then slammed his ship into the cop ship and stole the cop ship.
Because that's what he really wanted.
And just warped off with it. I don't know if that was what he really wanted, but that's what he got out of it. And he did a really good job of turning his disadvantage into an advantage, and still got something out of it. And I'm really looking for 7 game sessions in the future when we've all forgotten that happened and we're distracted. And he's like, another ship jumps into system. Another ship? What is it? It's a Protectorate warship. Oh, no, not him!
SID 55712. Oh, no. Don't tell me the last 3 digits are 36. 36? We're going to die.
Okay, well, welcome back, Zephyr Solace. Okay.
Yeah, or, because it feels very Expanse.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That right there felt very Expanse.
Exactly.
And I felt that was a great twist.
Oh, yeah.
And it sat perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Its timing was good.
Mm-hmm.
There were some hard moves there, but they were totally not part of what we were doing. It was a good hard move.
Yeah,
it was just beyond our visual and on contact range.
Yeah.
And that's where hard moves should happen in good flow.
Sure.
It was textbook great delivery of a hard move, without a doubt. You always want them to happen literally 2 inches beyond the reach of the players, but 100% invisible sight and part of the plot.
Yep. I think that's a really great description. 2 inches out of reach of the players, because they are. You need the players to feel like they're present, but feel like they absolutely could not have done anything to stop that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that I read after we talked about dealing with hard moves, this was a long time ago in one of our previous episodes, was when you see it on stage. Mm-hmm. There are hard moves that happen during operas. They're huge.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you will see them happen in such an elaborate and distant way that all the actors will be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Phantom of the Opera does it very well with them at a top of the stairs or way up in the balcony or whatever, right? They're so far away, but it has so much impact what they are doing.
Yeah.
And that's the way you want it. You want it to be a theater piece for the players, and those are wonderful executions.
Yeah, it came out great. So yeah,
congrats.
Game 2, still having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun there.
Yeah, we need 2 more to be to be on chain.
2 more, and it's a campaign.
Yep,
and it's official then. We got my game coming up next weekend.
This weekend.
This.
You don't get a whole week more.
Come on.
Nope, sorry. You get to suffer.
And literally right up to opening music here, you and I were discussing, like, oh God, what am I going to do? And
you know what you're going to do, but there's idiosyncrasies within it.
Yeah. It's I've got to like fine tune some mechanics to make it fun and not just go like, oh, there's some things happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it'll be fun to talk about the delivery at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today we are doing our Storyteller 202.
Yeah.
We are picking up from previous episodes where we've talked about villains, and we're actually combining that with the thought pattern that we had from our Building Plots 101, where we talked about that you could build it from not only like a world perspective or from a character's perspective, but from a villain's perspective. We kind of dabbled in a little bit, but we didn't get very deep. And for this episode, we're going to kind of like hard focus on that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen this discussion take place a lot, even on our own Discord, where someone is going to be like, okay, so I'm starting a new campaign and I'm trying to figure out where to go with it. And we're like, okay, what do you have so far? They say, all right, well, I've got a group of heroic characters, yep, and I've got a really cool world, okay, and I've got a villain, all right, and what does the villain do? Oh, he wants to blow up the world, okay, admirable goal. They very clear definition of why the heroes would want to stop him. They keep all their stuff there.
Love the tick reference. That's great.
But why does he want to blow up the world? And the answer to that is, I haven't really figured that out yet. And now, don't get me wrong. Okay, I am posing this not as a you guys are disappointing me anything sort of way. You know, this
never
is
at
not,
all. Never
at all. This is a very typical setup for a game, though. You get your heroes, you build your world, then you figure out what you want to do with it, and that's fine. That works for most tables.
I mean, most are hero centric.
Exactly.
Because we want to do something directed toward the players.
Yeah.
It's their characters. We want them to feel involved in the story. And unless we have in our mind that they have to fit in to a certain framework, like you did with Mages Guild or Fighters Guild, which help us, or Shadowrun the runners, like if you have their drive already established, it paints itself in many ways. But we don't always want to do that. We want to give them the freedom of being characters.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we have to wait to see what they're going to do in the world as people, like initially, to say, where do we put them?
Exactly. The thing is, though, is that when you're writing, with that sort of hero-centric writing, okay, the villain itself is kind of left as an afterthought sometimes. Or they can be. Not always.
Yeah.
But can be left as an afterthought. And, like, their motivations and their methods, as well, are not going to be as well fleshed out. And what that can do, not always, can lead to some scrambling to figure out how that villain actually fits into the hero's story.
Yeah, and it can often feel like you're just throwing, I guess, justifications.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily fit, but they squeeze into the plot elements. It's sometimes you feel like you're looking at that age-old video of the person watching somebody put the round blocks in the square hole, and then the circular, and you're just like, no, that
Where
hurts.
does the circle go? That's right, the
in
square hole.
And you're like, no. Yeah, it feels like that deep inside because you're like, something's not right, but I have to do it this way. And the truth is, you don't. And one of the ones that you brought up a long time ago was in the world design of Dark Souls. Yeah. And it was I guess it was one of the sad parts about reading the Dark Souls RPG game.
It actually was, legitimately.
So I mean, if you want to be sad, go back and listen to that episode. Seriously, we talk about it a lot. But the world is amazing.
Yeah. To this day, the world of Dark Souls, and I swear to God, I have a point with this.
You do. But you have a microphone and they don't.
The world is largely regarded as one of the most one of the best crafted worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from a design standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is what kind of makes it one of the most influential games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Any game that even kind of comes close to it is called a Souls-like.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't for the difficulty, it was for the world design,
Mm-hmm.
Is because the world itself is completely interconnected with itself.
Mm-hmm.
You will find yourself in a, labyrinthian maze of, weird outlandish creatures, and then open a door and you'll be like, wait a minute, I know where I am. I'm at the back of that other castle.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at a 3D map of the Dark Souls world, legitimately, you are there. It's not pulling shenanigans to get you from point A to point B. That is really where you are in space.
Some curving of tunnels to make sure you get to where you need to go physically, but other than that, it works out.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why, Dark Souls 2 was kind of lampooned when it came out, because it didn't do that.
No.
There's a place in Dark Souls 2 where you can see the top of the windmill tower castle thing, and you're like, oh, okay, and there's just nothing but clouds up there. So you get to the top of the windmill, and then you get in an elevator that takes you way up, and you end up straight up in a castle that is half submerged in lava. Yep. True story. Now, that is the type of design that we're talking about. Is right. When your world feels as interconnected as Dark Souls 1.
Right.
Okay. When everything kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Now keep in mind that Dark Souls doesn't have a set protagonist to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In fact, it almost doesn't care who you are. You yourself will be forgotten.
Right, 100%. Which is, I think, why it is as difficult as it is because you were never factored into this.
Exactly. There's some gods that need to be taken down a peg so that things can finally die.
Is that you? Is it not? We really don't care.
Doesn't matter. And it's all because they didn't craft the world around the main character. They crafted the world around itself. They made sure that the world itself was heavily leaned into its lore, that everything made sense, that everything interconnected, and that it felt like one big, living, breathing thing. And then you can interject anybody into that. And Correct. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Right, because everything already connects.
Exactly.
And
once you're there, it's so easy to tell your own stories on that canvas because the canvas itself is so elaborate.
Also, because the story's not about you. And I think that's one of the better parts about creating a world and having a world that, for lack of a better term, has a bunch of antagonists in it that aren't dealing with you at all.
Yeah.
They're dealing with each other. That antagonism of siblings or whatever it is has already been there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just part of this thing stepping into it.
Exactly. So before characters ever hit the table, okay, we've ensured that the villain's origin story is in tune with the lore and the world building.
Right.
We've ensured that the motivations that villain has for being the villain are well realized.
Mm-hmm.
That other NPCs that are related to the villain are also fully realized and available.
Sure. I mean, the drive of a henchman to follow said villain doesn't have to be, I agree with him.
Sure.
It could be, I have the same needs. Or I find the same drive.
Or I pity you.
Yeah.
Enough to want you to reach your goals.
Or I honor you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember so many Dark Souls characters that we talked about where the only reason why they're doing what they're doing is because they honor this other person.
Yeah.
They know they might be doing wrong, but that doesn't matter.
But I swore an oath.
I swore an oath. This is what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And respect me for that, at least.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It may be an arrangement of convenience, too.
Yeah, very often.
I don't even like you, but I kind of want the thing that you're trying to do to happen because I need that.
Right. If that happens, fine.
So I mean, think about all the NPCs that might go around your villain's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
You've got not only people that are on the villain's side, and there's, like we just discussed,
right.
multitudes of those, But you've got NPCs that stand against the villain
Mm-hmm.
and hold them back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've got NPC that are targets of the villain,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., like the king, whom the villain wants to overthrow.
Sure.
Okay. You've got NPCs that are catalyzed that catalyze the villain's shift to villainy,
Yeah.
i.e., the temple priest that cast them out, causing them to seek vengeance.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
that person's not necessarily part of the story in a direct sense.
Right.
They didn't want to create that villain,
Yeah.
but it was a meaningful moment in that villain's history.
Yep.
And that if you talk to that NPC, he may have some insight. You know,
In a lot of the times when you're hearing about this kind of thing, your brain shouldn't be thinking of this villain as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Your first framework should be what does it sound like? To me, a lot of times when we talk about these things, I think of something like the movie Lady Hawk, or Count of Monte Cristo, where you have heroes on a vengeance path.
yeah.
They were wronged. They're making it right. And this is the only way they know how to make it right.
I was talking about Michael Corleone earlier.
Same.
From the Godfather movies, exactly that.
I mean, vengeance doesn't have to be your only drive. I'm just saying, as you're listening to this, if those things are triggering your head, that is the right thing to be thinking of during your world building.
Is like looking at your villain and going like, okay, what made them be the person they are? Like, what? People don't wake up one day, twirl their mustache in their fingers and go, I think I'm going to destroy everything today.
Correct.
Something drives you to that.
Yep.
A
piece of information sometimes is all it takes.
Mm-hmm. Something makes you snap. Something makes you do the math and come up with that calculation, So, let's talk a little bit about the heroes, then, in all of this. Because, I mean, it can be a little daunting when you're focusing so much on your hero, or so much on your villains. Okay?
Right.
Okay, right from your villain's perspective, sure, but does that then make for a good story for the heroes? Where do they come in?
So, it's anywhere that puts them in conflict with the villain at a direct point. Sometimes that starts out simple, because it's not an angle that they recognize. But the idea is that it can be any vector so long as it meets the reasoning for the villain.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and I love to say this, shit rolls downhill.
Oh, yeah.
So an effect of something that the villain has done has now moved down the tree and is now affecting this. What is happening in this village is a direct result of something that's happened. It's the villain took over the mountain layer, which pushed the giants out. The giants moved down into the valley. The valley meant that the caves there are now that were occupied by the goblins have now moved out into the town. There are goblins in the town. There's your chain. That just happened. You know why it all happened.
Yep.
And you can follow that chain right back up.
Exactly. You've got, here's our introductory adventure. We're going to be fighting some goblins. Why are there goblins here? Why are there giants in the goblin caverns? Why indeed?
Right.
Well, where are the giants supposed to be? Well, they're up in the mountains.
Well, they're all wearing heavy furs.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go check out the giants' caverns.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what's going on here? And suddenly we've introduced our big bad evil guy.
And the villains can just want the world to burn. That is legitimate.
Sure.
Especially if the world needs to be rebuilt.
It's a pretty common heroic trope of I want to destroy the world.
Yeah. Thanos had it down. But he had reasoning for it. So that's part of it.
And it's super easy to put them in the opposition to the party.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you keep all your stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Again, very easy. So you don't have to tailor make anything for your group because every contact point is a contact point with the players.
Yeah, exactly.
Is going to be a way to make them feel like something bad is happening to where their stuff gets stored. And whether the players want to be rich or famous or, whatever, they have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to exist.
Exactly. And it doesn't really matter who the PCs are.
No.
It's the great thing about having a villain who's broad sweeping goal is very Thanos-like, is very, I just want to destroy the world, is that everybody hates that. So you can have a party made up of a lot of diverse PCs. If you want to run that type of like D&D game where you're just like, yeah, everything from, this to this is available, just use these rules to make your characters, I don't care, show up with whatever. This is the type of villain you want for that, because it doesn't, like, everybody's going to be against him, so it doesn't matter what your motivations are, it doesn't matter what you bring to the table.
Yep, agreed.
However, keeping in mind that if you do offer a very diverse group like that, it allows for some really great player creativity, but it also can lead to parties where you've got a lot of disparate motivations.
And sometimes inter-party conflict because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Pulling the group in different places, or I'm playing a paladin and you're playing a warlock of the Great Old One, and I hate that.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
I often find the mixed party bag exceptionally hard to let the players wrangle themselves, unless the players themselves know each other well enough to say, we've got this. Like,
sure.
We'll stick together. Don't worry about us. Then it's fine.
Yeah.
Then you can get away with that.
So you get your broad focus like that, and then there's kind of the narrow focus.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes the villains, make it personal.
Sure.
The party for this is going to need to be a narrower group that would care enough about the villain to stop him, or be in a position that they're obliged to do so. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we are not talking about someone who wants to destroy the world here. Okay.
No.
When I say make it personal, I mean I am causing a problem for you.
Right. Now that you, capital Y-U, might be something that is directly in the cone of directions that the players want to go in.
Sure.
I work for the king. The king needs to die. Okay, that's a direct vector. Like, you can't miss that. Right?
Now, will killing the king or deposing him or whatever destroy the world? No.
No.
There's going to be a political upheaval, probably. And
giant vacuum.
You may not like what he does once he's in power, or whatever he thinks he's going to do after he destroys the king.
Right.
But, no, it's, the world will go on.
But at the same time, if your thought is like, well, this person wants to upset magic so that it's no longer functions because magic is evil, that doesn't help when, like, 2/3 of your party are fighters. Because they're going to be like, okay, what's wrong with that? And then now you have a direct inter-party conflict of what they need to do. Now, on the other hand, if they're all guards and mage guild members guards of the mage guild and mage guild members, they all kind of have a vested interest in keeping magery around, and wizardry. So that changes that scope a little. But it does make it difficult for you then to make everyone feel inclusive in wanting to be involved in that plot, and you have to then start targeting things that are adjacent.
Yeah, sure.
So that it has that same level of impact,
I think a great example of this is one of your most often cited movies, and that's The Three Musketeers.
Yep.
You've got the Three Musketeers versus the Count because he targeted the king that they're sworn to protect with their lives.
Right. Regardless of their own personal beliefs, they all took the oath.
Exactly.
And the final part of that is to protect the king and the people.
Exactly. And they may not even like or agree with the king.
Or each other.
They may like the Count.
Correct.
They may actually agree. They may have, they may say, like, look, I see what you're doing, and the king is kind of a dick and needs to be taken down a peg.
Sure.
But I'm one of the Musketeers, and not like this.
Yeah, this is...
And not on my watch.
This is not how this works.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you're not in that situation going to get, like, a PC that sympathizes with the French Revolution, and goes, go ahead, kill him, I'll see if I care, You made Musketeers. This is the story we're telling.
So... in that sometimes narrower focuses work or guided focuses work. Shadowrun is a good example of a guided focus because, again, if everyone is working for a run and then they all get involved and they are the problem because they know too much, now they are part of the issue regardless of their own personal beliefs because they are the ones being hunted to be taken care of. I often like plots where villains consider the players just a side issue. Like, in the checklist of things, they're like, number 12 on the list, eliminate these people.
Yeah.
and it's an item that never goes away.
Right,
You
right.
know, did you take care of the guys at the docks? Yeah. Did you guys get the shipment loaded? Uh-huh. Did you guys make sure that that we had the escape? 100%, sir. All right, we got this item down here, number 12. Eliminate these runners?
Did you kill the adventurers? No.
No,
They
they've-
actually defeated our henchmen. That's going to become a problem. Bump them up to number 8 on the list.
Exactly. Until they eventually become number 1, and then you're number 2, and you're like, okay, I have a thing that I need to get done, and you guys are a huge thorn in my side.
Yep,
But by then, you're making different decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it easy to have them involved. It makes it easy to have them feel like they're involved. Regardless of what they're doing, there's a constant thorn there that's affecting them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
The other thing, too, is that you have to make sure that your players cannot just resolve your villain's grievance for him.
Oh my gosh, I've watched so many Reddit threads unravel where people are talking about, like, well, this is my world, and this is the villain, and I just need to know if there's any problems, and, like, the top thread is like, so all the players have to do is find the money? Because they're poor? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really easy in the world design that you have here.
If your villain can be defeated by GoFundMe,
Exactly.
it's probably not. He's probably not the greatest villain.
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't know. I don't know what the scope of your campaign is. you
Yeah,
know?
or somebody hurt me, so, like,
Okay,
we'll
we'll
bring
go after him then. Why are
Right.
we going after you?
Right,
You
right.
know?
Kind
You're
of a
the
thing.
wronged party.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's not even to say like the players agree with them and become part of their side. That's fine. That actually works out really well in your favor, because now you have someone who can give them quests and work through a problem. They may not like why or what they're doing, but they're going to lean into it because they agree with them up to a point. And now they're
Sure.
henchmen,
Sure.
and
absolutely.
henchmen are fine. Making your PCs into players into henchmen is fantastic.
Yeah. But that's the big thing is you have to make sure that no matter how personal you make it, you always have to place the PCs and the villains in an irreconcilable position
Yes.
against each other.
Yes, there has to be the one thing, the line,
Yep. The line
the
the
point of
PCs will
contention.
not cross that separates them from the villain.
And I think this right here you see in those vengeance hero movies, where someone checks them, their close friend, a lover, even sometimes the other villain looks at them like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, you're crossing a line that I've never seen you cross before. And then they check themselves and realize they've become the villain that they didn't want to be.
Uh-huh.
Or worse, or the other way around, the villain becomes the good guy because he realizes either I really suck at being a villain, or two,
Oh, I'm that guy.
maybe I need to be the hero here,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love those stories too. But having that opposition point that gets checked, that is the line that gets drawn in the sand, is great. It is the point that you've got it right. When the
Yeah.
players are like, he's gone too far.
Yeah, having those are some of the villain moments that I just love the most.
Yeah.
Where the villain is doing his little plot exposition thing, he's monologuing, and he's like, and that's why, this happened to me, and the villains go, or the heroes go, oh, you poor soul, and he's like, yes, and then this happened, and they're like, my heart goes out to you, and he's like, and you see, that's why I seek justice, and you deserve justice, you were so wronged, and he's like, and that's why I have to destroy everything.
Yeah.
It's the only way to be sure, and they go, see, you had me up until that point.
Yeah.
And if you could literally just walk back from that precipice, you and I might actually get along.
The Incredibles
Yeah.
is a great delivery of that as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Buddy turning villain, the point of it was he wanted to get rid of all other heroes except for him. He wanted everyone to be heroes without them. He didn't need them to be the heroes anymore. So,
And I mean, I again kind of see his perspective, but man, then you went and started murdering people, and
Right.
I don't know about that.
and I think this kind of leads into the fact that heroes tend to stumble upon these types of plots.
Yeah.
When it's really villain centric, you're not just putting the mustache twirling villain right in front of them. In fact, they may not even know the villain is the villain at any point until they call it out, and that is the hardest part, I think, about getting that feeling right, but feeling the greatest about it.
Yes.
Is if you can keep your villain in the light of a good guy, doing good, a good villain, if you will, that when the players stumble across that line of villainy and go, whoa, that guy needs to be stopped. That's when you go and you feel that warm part of your chest, like, and now the second act starts. You know, how are they going to figure this one out? How are they going to turn everyone else to understanding this guy's a villain?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what I really love about these sort of things too is that, like, their plot's already in motion.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of get them in medias res.
Yeah.
Like, it's when you start by writing the villain's motivations, that's already going on, and then you end up with these things like we discussed earlier, where it's like, okay, why are there goblins in the town?
Sure.
Because there's giants in their caves.
Right.
Why are there giants in their caves? They're supposed to be up in the mountains. What's going up in the mountains that's displacing them? And then you go up there and you find shit that's already in progress.
I mean, maybe
Like,
those caves are now empty and they've been mined clean.
Right. It doesn't matter. Like, regardless of what it is, it doesn't matter. But the fact is that whatever tipped that off and spilled onto the players' plates, you can slowly escalate that as they keep going further and further and further down that proverbial rabbit hole until they finally come across your villain, who then has no idea who they are. They're just like, oh, and some weird adventurers showed up. Whatever, just get rid of them. We're already well underway. We've almost succeeded. You know? And it...
Having those plot clocks ticking,
Yes.
I think is one of the things that you can look at as well, is that a lot of games talk about these, but it's hard to really describe it. But if you're in your world building phase, you can literally mark the clocks and ask yourself, where are we in this? Where do I want to drop the players in this?
Yes.
How do I want these to tick? What points of progress do I want the players to reach when these moments tick? What do they find?
And when they tick, what changes?
Right. What's just outside of their reach that changes?
That's the biggest thing for me, is that as the villain's plans progress, you want things to change in the world. Okay? I always come back to Titanic when I'm thinking of things like this. So Titanic was... I mean, the iceberg wasn't a villain.
No.
But the iceberg does what a villain can do to your story.
It's an environmental villain.
It's an environmental villain. It is an antagonist in that it changes the story in a way that is bad for our protagonists. But, like, that movie can be very clearly marked as pre-iceberg, post-iceberg. When the iceberg hits, that is because something has collided, literally and figuratively, with the worlds of our protagonists and fundamentally shifted something in how they understand and interact with reality at that point.
And the world is taking the effects, not the characters. Because despite what you believe, you as the storyteller will never be able to set consequences on your players that have any meaningful value. The moment you think you can do that with things that are written on their paper or injuries or something like that to help them understand the weight, you're doing it wrong. That's not going to weigh onto them. They will feel it by feeling the investments that they have within that world dwindling and burning and having problems. Because as the world falls apart around them, or the alien surge gets higher, or their resources that are not tangible to them but still available burn away, and the world no longer looks the same, that's what's going to cause them the greatest amount of distress. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
All right, so where do we get started? We talked a lot about why this is a cool idea to do.
Right.
Where do you start?
I will say, and I'm not going to say that this is the right way or the wrong way, but usually what I'll say is, regardless of you having a world set up or not. Maybe you're starting with a villain, maybe you want to start with a world that you already have, maybe you have a re-existing setting, doesn't matter. What matters is, what is the, and I put it in quotes, villain's motivation? What's their primary motivation?
Sure.
Now, are they a villain yet? Probably not. Do they believe that they are one? They probably have no idea.
Yeah.
But the point is,
the old adage goes, villains are the heroes of their own stories.
Right. So start them as a hero. Make them feel to you that they are on the right path, that they are doing the right thing. good, in quote, villains make good stories.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Make them a hero. Make it vengeance. Make it hate. Make it something that is passionately strong. I mean, you could go as far as calling them a tyrant
Mm-hmm.
or a fanatic
Mm-hmm.
about something. That's fine. You can go to those extremes.
Mm-hmm.
But it often helps to start lighter in your design and push to that primary motivation. But find what that line is. Find what they're doing to make that line and make it so strong that they will never break from it.
Oh god, I actually just thought of the villain from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
Spoiler alert for a 25-year-old game here.
Yeah, sure.
But the villain basically is the church. And like their whole motivation is getting a hold of these things called the Zodiac Stones, which actually have like the souls of demons
Sure.
entrapped in them, and they're going to use those essentially as a power play to destroy both of the great houses that are warring,
To stop the
that
war.
have been warring for the last 30 years.
Sure.
Exactly, to stop the war. They're like, look at all this bloodshed and destruction.
Right.
But neither of them will hear reason. Neither of them will hear peace. What if we just overpowered both of them?
Yeah.
But we're just a wee little church. What could we do that with? Well, there are these Zodiac Stones, and we've got a handful of them. We could find the rest. Sure, they're demons, but they're more powerful than them, and everybody will unite under us.
Yeah. The Ozymandias
Yeah.
design. We have to bring the world together, because if we don't, it falls apart every time.
And if I just murder, 10 million people
in various places.
then they'll all unify and decide that we have a common goal. And bam, all it took was 10 million people. There's 8 billion people on the planet? Small price to pay.
Yeah.
0.1%,
Yeah. It's the Thanos thing. We have a problem. The universe is running out of space.
Yeah.
We just need to take away half of the people. Once half the people are gone, we'll be just fine. How do we pick those people? We don't. It's random.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's perfectly fair.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Yep. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people gone.
Yeah, I'm not doing this because I hate you. I'm doing this because I'm trying to save you.
Yeah. I'm saving all of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And your future.
And if you would just stop fighting me,
Right.
I can make sure that the universe prospers.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need these stones.
Right,
They just solve a problem in the end.
Knox, by the way, has wrote like a small paragraph in the live chat. He's like, Movie Thanos has the dumbest motivation. You need more resources because there are too many people and you stumble upon powerful gems that can do anything? Literally make more resources with your reality gem. You don't need to kill anyone. At least in the comics, it made sense. You have a crush on Death. You want to impress her. You kill half the universe as a romantic gesture. Still dumb, but the movie Thanos motivation just bothers me.
I feel like that was missed. I'm gonna take a half sidebar. Thank you. I wanted Thanos to have that love interest as a hidden undertone. I wanted it to be there. Because it did make sense why he was okay with using all of this power.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get a glimpse of death.
When the booty's so fine, you murder half the universe.
Exactly.
Yep. I've been there.
And because it makes more sense about his rise to that point. Like, where does he get the notion that even made sense? Like, hey, I did the math. Well, if you did the math, then you could have done other math, buddy.
Right. Why did you stop at that math?
Yeah, why was that the end of your math? You idiot, But if you're just like, okay, I started by killing a planet. That didn't do anything. Or I started by killing one race. That didn't do anything. So I destroyed the planet. That got me like a view of her ankle, and that was so righteous. Like,
Knox says, you know who she's dating now? Deadpool.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Slumming it.
First off, you're wrong. People like who they like. Get over it.
Yeah, everybody's got a type. It's fine.
Yeah, she got a type. She got a type. They got a type? It's death.
Yeah, it's death.
But anyways, I digress back to our story. Regardless, we need to figure out at what step of the rung of the evil, how big and bad are they?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we know their vector. Now it's a matter of where do we want to put them on that line? You can decide that position literally after session 0. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because again, the next step you have is what effect do they have on the world that puts a pebble in the shoe of the characters, right? What is it that they're directly affecting?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the decision-making process, because putting your villain in front of your characters is a terrible idea. You never want to do that. They're inevitably going to do something stupid to that villain.
At least not after you have introduced them as the main villain to the conflict.
Correct.
You can absolutely be, like, at a party together where nobody has weapons, and the Count comes in, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. I kind of hate the king, and they're like, getting some bad vibes from him. And then later you find out he's the one behind the plot to kill him. Okay, cool. You put your villain in front of them, but they didn't know he was the villain at the time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But once you make that clear, no, your players absolutely will just try to kill them on first viewing.
But I think that the thing that gets most caught up in that is that people don't know what happens when their villain finishes.
Yeah. What if he wins?
And sometimes that's the best point to have your players meet your villain. Like, the bomb went off 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
While you guys were here. Like, we've come to this point together. I didn't want you to not be here when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, regardless how you feel about me, like, I felt like I owed that to you after
Yeah.
all of this.
Oh, God, I'm kind of realizing I did this with my Poppy King.
You did. You totally did. And the delivery of that moment made it more real.
Yeah.
Because we're not changing the world as characters. It's our stories.
Yeah, you're cleaning up your backyard. That's literally all you were doing.
Yeah.
Some weird little uprising in the Colovian Highlands in some little podunk farming communities.
Yeah.
That was getting way out of hand real quick.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It was still a little uprising in some farming communities.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, 100%. 100%. So,
and the only time you ever saw the villain was when he got bashed over the head, nearly killed and betrayed by his henchman who stole his crown.
Yeah.
And ran off with it.
Yeah. Which was, again, hilarious. But the whole point of that is that you can throttle where that fits in and what then needs to be dealt with after they're done. And whether or not they're the villain at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, if they get their vengeance complete and, you know, maybe they don't succeed. Maybe they partially succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they find that the truth of whatever they were doing was a lie. Now it's like, oh crap, right? I was manipulated. Who told you that this was the only way to get your wife back? Well, I read it from this diary and these books. Who gave you those?
Emperor Palpatine.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, what have we learned about that?
Yeah, exactly. And that, again, that opens that door if the campaign needs to continue at that point and get bigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They can still feel the success of completing what they did, but it opens up the scope to say there are still things that can be done.
Yes.
And it's not just their story. Their stories are still individualized. This is just the plot that's sitting behind them. The world that has been going on around them.
Yep.
So.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about what kind of the pros and cons of this approach are.
Ooh,
where does
okay.
this work? Where does this not work best?
Okay. Are we starting with good?
I think we're starting with good, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So for me, I think this works best when you are tailoring a specific story to your world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you have a firm
story
idea...
to world. Not world to story. Story to world. Okay.
Well, I don't know the relation between them. When you've got a very specific idea for where you want the story to go
okay.
in your world, is all I was saying, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just being clear.
Okay, so, for me, I think this method allows you to have so much of your story in place literally from session 0.
Okay, yeah.
You've got inciting incidents.
Mm-hmm.
You've got motivations for both your villains and your heroes.
Sure.
You've got bystanders on both sides who will have their motivations of their own as things go on. You've got a potential path to victory for the villain already that acts as a linchpin for your campaign.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Stop villain from doing the thing is always a North Star that your heroes can grab onto.
And the more of those characters that can be wrapped around that linchpin, the stronger its point to be removed is.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And, it's a great start on the lore and reasons that, it existing in the first place.
And because it is a story that requires the lore, because it's embedded with it.
Yes.
Anything
all of these things are events that happened in your world already.
So now any lore that you put out to your players when they ask questions has meaning. There's a good reason why you're talking about it.
Yep.
Because it's embedded in the plot.
Yep.
It does one other thing, and that is it can give you an estimation on how long the story is going to be, because you can set the beats.
Yes.
You can do those clock ticks. You can decide where in the clock you are.
Exactly.
You can decide whether it's going to be I'm here and, we're coming in after my guy is most of the way through his villainy and he's just about to finish creating his ultimate weapon to basically show the might of his forces versus everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So we're here, which means that there's got to be someone who knows about this and is trying to do something about it. It's just too obvious at this point, because secrets can't be kept at that point, right?
And our main story beats is he tries to use it as a test fire. We hear about that, and then he's going to use it on the real thing. So there's really only two main story beats that we're going to go from.
Yep.
One that becomes an inciting incident that brings all of our heroes in, and one that puts our heroes in direct conflict with him as they try to thwart him.
Yep.
Boom.
Perfect.
Nice, short story.
Yep.
But you put more ticks on that clock, you put more steps in the villain's plan, you bring in more early motivations or vicissitudes or complications, as you want to call them, and suddenly your story can become a lot longer.
Yes.
And it's very easy to plan those out if you kind of know what that villain's going to try to do.
Yep.
And how he's going to try to do it.
Yep. I think the stumbling block in that is sandboxing.
Oh, yeah.
Where players start finding other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling that this is a requirement to take this care of this problem, I need to go do this other thing too. The side quests to get up to level to be able to go do the thing.
Right, or even just I wrote in my backstory that I'm looking to find my long-lost brother, so
right.
I know the villain is going to blow up the world probably sometime in the next week, but I really want to find my brother, And we end up with what I like to call the Skyrim problem, Alduin the dragons are back, and Alduin's going to devour the world, really soon, if you, the Dragonborn, the one hero that is prophesied and has the power to solve this, doesn't immediately stop him. Cool, but you also definitely have time to collect every Nirnroot and Blackreach, explore every cave, become the head of the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild, the Mages Guild, the Companions,
get married,
build a house, marry a sexy vampire, raise a kid or two.
Marry a sexy vampire. That is a thing. That is a
sexy
thing.
vampire that is voiced by Laura Bailey, by the way.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
there
is everything right with that, Rob.
But at the same time, and I think this was one of the greatest parts about us being able to talk about these things, is that you can do a villain as an opening to a sandbox. And that is really cool, because you can use that villain's staging to open up all the other problems that exist. Or even as a guide to said problems. One of the ones that I was talking to you about earlier was Silas in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah. I bought it, but it's sitting in my Steam library.
Yeah, if you're interested in a really good story, I highly recommend people play this. After you're done playing it, go watch the videos where people put the timeline together and talk about the heroes and villains of the story. It's really well done. But that character presents himself in a very manipulative, villainous way. Mm-hmm. But the whole time he is guiding this hero effectively through the story, through different manipulations, conversations. They never really make contact. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that, as a villain character, and why that is so powerful, is because it allows you to have the villain shine the light on everything else lore-wise in the world that is weird, to present what the story is. Mm-hmm. And then when he is done, either by the hand of the heroes or whatever plot or machinations he's done with, is he really a villain or just a gray, misguided dude who you're like, you did a lot of bad things, but at this point in time, like, you also uncovered a lot of stuff because you're smart and you needed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never have followed you from day one. You know.
The big question at the end is, are you a villain or are you just a dick?
And if you can get to that point and have now an open world to go explore and mess around with, or another plot following that right up where he's like, and now you understand my concern.
Yeah.
I didn't know what this flashing red light was until you just figured it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that flashing red light and the countdown timer was leading up to something.
Yep.
And I needed that answer, and you're the only person who could tell me what it translated to.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. And you're like, you're a jerk?
Yeah.
I hate you. What are we now going to do about that? I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
I didn't think that far. Like, and
Me, I didn't put it there.
exactly. And sometimes that's a great place to open a sandbox world of like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
You know. Now, I'm not going to say that isn't also not a bad place to just end your campaign right there and let your players be like, ooh, my brain just keeps going. You know,
I would hate that. More importantly, your wife would hate
my wife would absolutely hate it if I left a story hanging like that. Yeah.
I think the big one for me actually is Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
Final Fantasy did this. Final Fantasy VII,
particularly
not my favorite, but did this really well. If you bought the PlayStation 1 version of it, I don't know what iterations it's in now.
Yeah, I had the PlayStation 1 version with all the CDs.
Yes, it was a 4-disc thing.
Right.
And disc 1 was entirely in the city of Midgard.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing with this terrorist freedom fighter group called the Returners fighting against this evil megacorporation that owned and ran the city, which was this gigantic thing called a Mako reactor, which was siphoning life energy to create electricity for the entire dystopian city, etc., etc. They had all these weird experiments going on and whatnot.
Couple dudes on
but
payroll.
basically, the entire thing was all took place in Midgard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only basically at the point at which you, like, something really catastrophic happens, and you basically decide, okay, we need to get out of here and go do something else outside of Midgard, that it turns to disc 2.
Yeah.
And so you absolutely can use, if you want to play a sandbox game, you 100% can use a very carefully crafted villain's story to kind of guide them through, like, okay, you guys are these heroes, you're in direct opposition to this villain has all sorts of things going on, all the elements of our plot wrap around this villain in this tidy little story that's going on right here, and now that you've defeated him,
welcome to the world.
You're level 5, welcome to the world, go play. It's now a sandbox.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of NPCs that you know now, both good and bad. You may have some recurring villains, like the Turks are a great example of that.
Yeah.
Like, you run, Reno, Rude, Elaine, you run into them several times throughout the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But the reason they're important to you is because you run into them 2 or 3 times in disc 1. And they become they establish themselves as thorns in your side. You go out into the world, and then, things are happening, seemingly not related to Midgard at all, and then all of a sudden, boom, here come these Shinra lackeys up in your grill, and you're like, crap, it's you guys. And like I've said about recurring villains in the past, or any really recurring NPC, you've already got the investment. So instead of it just being, who are these fools, it's you.
Yeah. I love the "oh, it's you." That's some of the greatest feelings that you can have at the table is the "oh, it's you."
Yeah.
It's as strong as the "oh, it's that one guy," kind of a thing.
So yeah, you've basically stocked the pond with a bunch of NPCs, and you've given your PCs some really great trajectory. You've given them a villain, an actual villain to, like, forge themselves against and in the fire of. You've given them hard decisions that they may have had to make up until that point, which will lead to some great character development, and then you unleash them on the world for your sandbox.
Yep.
Great. I love it.
Have a nice time. So.
And now that you've finished the tutorial.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So, I think we thoroughly killed that.
Yeah. Killing it since 2018.
It's true. It's true. Nevim had a few questions, and Subject had questions. Had a question, or
Yeah, sure.
yeah, two that I think were definitely hard topicked. Nevim, how villains' plots differ from story plots? Realistically, for me, a story plot is something that can be dropped in regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
It is kind of its own adventure, and can sometimes be world agnostic even. Like, it doesn't have to be bound to the hard lore of your world, because it is a story within itself. And stories kind of are the same. Whether it's got a lot of interlinking with your lore and things like that, that's great. But the truth of the matter, the core of the story is going to come down to what story you're trying to tell. Whereas a villain's story is just that. It's your players involved in someone else's story and how they make an impact on that person and their story. So that's it's always from the perspective of the villain. When you're talking about it to your players, they're just seeing scenes in that other person's story.
Yeah.
And that's the key difference.
It's the parts of the scene that spill of the villain story that spill over and land in on your hero's plates.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the waves that he makes or they make. So,
the next question is how to intertwine a villain's perspective with the hero's ones. Now, I am reading this to be understood as how do you show the heroes through the villain's point of view, essentially.
Okay.
Now, you have done this pretty effectively in some of your 7th Sea games.
Yes.
I actually don't think I've seen you do this for a while,
I have not, because I didn't establish it in my D&D game at all.
Yeah, true.
It didn't feel like it should be established, but I dare say if I ever brought back around another villain's plot or another long campaign story, I will probably end up using those again. And effectively what they were meanwhile scenes.
Yeah.
Where, like, literally this has nothing to do with the players. I am literally narrating a scene somewhere else that is happening, so that the players get a perspective of, like, in this dark tower, torture is happening and you're hearing screams, and a specific individual is being requested to say, what was their name? Give us the names. And they just cry out into the night, Sylvia. Okay, great. You know that the person's a pirate, and you know they're being tortured clearly by some inquisitorial people, but you're not sure what that was all about, but you know the villain was there watching the whole thing. So the players know things that their characters don't. And in that, there are two ways to look at it. Either the villain's perspective comes out as a precursor to events that are coming up. Some small piece of information that eventually that scene makes a lot more sense for. Like, Sylvia, you find out, is someone they meet who's this, nice, I don't know, a duchess who takes care of them and helps them get to this other castle and, gets them a ship that they need. And eventually she's able to reunite with her father, right? Only to find out that she's actually the villain's henchman and girlfriend. And the whole reason why she needed to get her father back is he was in hiding from the villain because he has information. He's like Da Vinci, right? And that was a bad thing. Like, and now she's brought exactly what her lover needs.
Sure.
Because she loves him so much. And so you're like, oh crap, those pirates worked for her, and the Inquisition was trying to figure out what was really going on. Are they our friends or enemies? Who are they? And so that opens up that framework.
A secret third thing.
Right. So when you do these scenes, which are not necessarily easy to do, they can bring up the framework of what's going on. Another good way of doing it is like The Incredibles did, where you're dealing with a scene where the players, again, it's a hard move. It's happening just a few inches outside of reach.
Yeah.
But a whole conversation occurs where the players get 100% privy on what's going on behind the screen, right? And when they eventually are allowed to walk into that space and examine it, they get the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Oh, he was at the terminal, he left it on because so and so was here to come meet him. The players were coming to meet him, and so now, like, the conversation you hear is, did we finish phase 2? Yes, it's online and will be ready in 20 minutes. You'll be able to, we'll be able to launch and everything will be on schedule. Great. Is anything going to stop the countdown? No. It's happening. It's happening on 4 different locations. Great. They walk out the door. You go in. You look, and you realize that phase 1 was eliminate all superheroes. Phase 2 was launch the super weapon on the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm in the bad guy's lair. Crap. So it's those kinds of moments that you present in those flavors so that the villain can get their monologue out without it being a fight, where you can see why they're doing what they're doing and their drive and motivation without seeing the emotional reaction that the players present.
I have always been a big fan of the recruitment speech.
Oh yeah.
Where the villains recognize that the heroes are present and that they stand against them and that they are powerful, and their response to that is, "Why are we fighting? You guys are awesome. You could be helping me because my cause is righteous.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to do what's right? So do I. You should help me do the right thing, which is the villainous thing that I'm trying to do."
Right.
And that puts you in a really nice position to parlay with them, and it allows you to tip your hand a bit, which gives you some really good perspective on the villain's inner thinkings when she's just outright explaining them to you and going, "This is the thing I'm trying to accomplish. Don't you want to sign on to that?"
Mm-hmm.
Bam, instantly done. And if you can't do it through your villain, do it through intermediaries. Store-bought is fine.
Yep.
I think I did both of those in the Skingrad plot.
I think you did.
Yeah.
I think you did.
The villain realized you were chasing her down, so she sent her minions to go work with you because she thought that you had a sympathetic ear.
Yep.
They're like, "Hi, we're here to help."
Yep. That's fair. All right. Next question. When designing villain plots, what kind of questions should we have in our mind to try and answer? I think we kind of went over this. Motivation.
Yeah. What are they trying to accomplish, and why are they trying to accomplish it?
Right.
And how do they justify it in their own head?
How is it fine?
Yeah.
How is this the only way to do it?
Yes, exactly. Why is this the thing that the math worked out to?
Yeah, and then the second question coming into that is, where do they sit on the scale? How far are they in the power scale or depth scale of their actions?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
how far along in their plan are they?
Where does that line intersect with the group?
Yes.
How is it touching the bubble of their world hard enough that they can't ignore it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. As it was once put in a really great comment, when cooking the players in the plot, do not cook them like a frog where you slowly turn up the water. They will never notice the plot is heating up until it's too late.
Okay.
Sometimes you need to throw something hard at them so that they recognize it and wake up, and then go, what threw that?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the better analogy always.
I think you're very right about that. I think you're very right.
You're smiling at me, and I can feel Sunday picking at my brain. So
Yep.
So Subjet then added, is it better to have a villain's plot that is gray or very black and white? Meaning, should we feel for the villain because he is evil for good reasons, or should we want to defeat him because he is evil? In my personal opinion, it doesn't matter. You can do both. You can do either. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Either works.
They're two different types of very viable stories.
100%.
The mustache-twirling villain absolutely has a place in your story.
Without a doubt. Even if they're dumb, it doesn't matter.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think, like, the black and white villain makes for a very good, like, pulpy story.
Mm-hmm.
Where, heroes are heroes and villains are villains and,
But I think you still need to ask yourself the same questions.
Oh, you absolutely still need to realize why your villain is the villain.
Reconcile the villain, regardless.
But it is okay to make them a little cartoonishly evil.
Sure.
If that is the type of story that you're trying to tell. On the other hand, if you're trying to tell a story that, like, you really want your players to think about, like, what are the deep motivations going on here? Where are the moral gray areas in this absolute ethical landmine field that is laid before us? if you want them thinking about those things, then a gray villain is absolutely the way you want to go.
Or a villain who believes that they are right.
Yeah, multiple times in the story, you want your players to go like, oh, God, I kind of see his point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, does that make me a villain? No, 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 no.
Yeah. I think for me, the idea of evil for evil it only works when they are tyrannical or their ideology is just hard.
Zealots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you make them a zealot.
The zealot, the monster, those are really good archetypes for...
Yeah. And just make sure you stick to those. Just make sure you stick to those. Give them something that the one thing that will turn them around is something that is almost intangible, or at one time it was and now it isn't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That part of them has been burned away. The off switch is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
But you can show them the off switch when it existed. It's like, your daughter would never like this. Yeah, but she's dead.
Right. Right.
And it's like, okay, well, that off switch got broken years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're just on all the time now. And I think that's when you have evil for evil, that's one of the best ways to do it. Otherwise, sure. Make sure that the players, and I think this is the other part of it, if you want your players to be able to have an impact on the story, the villain needs to be a person. It needs to have motivations and drive and understanding so that the players can understand them and make those decisions. And then it really is cooperative storytelling. You're giving them options. They're coming up with options, and you're accepting those options. There's nothing to say that they can't turn that villain around or side with them or run them through, whatever it may be. So, hope that answers the question.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I think we've thoroughly murdered this topic.
Absolutely.
Next week, we have a system spotlight.
Yeah, now this is one you pulled up. I don't think I've even looked at this one yet.
I've seen it bounced around on r/RPG and a few other places, and like a lot of commentary about it. And that is Monster Care Squad. I've been interested in it because, like, someone said, it's 10% Pokemon in its belief stuff, because apparently it's like there's a tranquil world that got messed up, and there's like poisons, and like you're caring for monsters, but there's other things going on. So there's a lot of storytelling elements, but it's all about like care and understanding, yet not. And I'm like, I'm too interested. I need to dig into this one a little bit deeper, because I've seen some very different stories being told in Monster Care Squad, but at the same time, everybody's just like, they're really good.
Well, dig into it we will.
Yes.
In precisely 1 week, we will be back with Monster Care Squad on our next System Spotlight. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. We'd love to hear from you, bounce some story ideas off the other great storytellers that are there, share pictures of your miniatures, whatever. You can find that link on our Twitter as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com.
We'd like to thank all our Patreon members who support us, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, Sam, The Arcane Asylums, Parker Molson, Vedran, Hulavu, and Sean. We appreciate all of your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find them at patreon.com/arcaneanthems or on Instagram at Arcane Anthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on YouTube. And our outro music is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
And a big shout out as always to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving and supporting us. All of our friends who sat at our tables over the years who give these great stories to share with you, and you, every single one of our listeners. We love you so much.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.